What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, man. After having done a few videos and not having really had the time to watch a lot of videos, I watched a video by Blue Blood Sports TV, and I also watched a video by Barbershop Conversations, where they talked about one of the issues, specific issues that I was unaware of with why Anthony Joshua. It's rumored that Anthony Joshua is upset with Eddie Hearn. And just going off of the rumor, right? And the reason I call it a rumor is because I didn't hear it myself, but the sources on it, I have a lot of faith in, and it's something that I've seen in my life happen before. And it's a situation where it's par for the course when you deal with somebody that if somebody will lie for you, they will lie to you. And I've seen scenarios in business where you have where I look at an agreement and I have no idea why somebody would bind somebody else into an agreement that's terrible. But only later to find out, or to believe heavily, that have evidence put to me that they had that there was something into it for the person that made that error, right? Where it made sense for them, but it didn't make sense for the people that they bound into an agreement. But let me be specific with it. And also I'm going to talk about an announcement that Roy Jones Jr. is going to partner with MTK Global. I have to believe that's to represent fighters in the United States, because MT Global, from what I understand, is a managerial company, a boxing management company. And Roy Jones Jr. is a promoter, but he's also somebody that has a tremendous amount of respect in the American boxing community, and has done in the past did a good job getting certain high level fighters to sign with particular managers. Specifically, the one that comes out to the most obvious example of that is Roy Jones' relationship with Andre Ward. And so if Roy Jones Jr. is vouching for a relationship for a boxer to sign with a management company in the United States, that word has to go a long way, because Roy Jones, has a reputation of being a man of his word, and clearly he's legendary in American boxing. So, that type of partnership, but however, it does have certain issues with it that, I would like to understand how they're going to rectify it. But before I get into that, let me get into the rumor, and I'll connect it to the Roy Jones Jr. thing. Okay, so the rumor is that, and I believe this is a viable thing, right, that the reason Anthony Joshua is upset is because the deal for Alexander Povetkin and to fight Anthony Joshua was already a done deal. And it was already a done deal because Alexander Povetkin's manager slipped some money to, and I don't know what slip some money to means, but was basically double dealing on Anthony Joshua, and received compensation from Alexander Povetkin's trainer, Alexander Povetkin's promoter, and passed some of that along to the WBA, which is why the WBA was so insistent on Deontay Wilder facing Alexander Povetkin. Excuse me, on Anthony Joshua fighting Alexander Povetkin, and why they haven't enforced the 24-hour deadline on having the fight signed, sealed, and delivered. And all that makes sense to me. And it's something that I think is not just possible, it is probable. Now, my experience with that, I call it double dealing. And honestly, it's a breach of fiduciary duty by a promoter, right? And so where I've dealt with that before is where I used to work on I've worked on several warehousing deals where people who produce certain products would sell that product and have it shipped out of a warehouse. And so, the warehouse makes their money off how much product is stored in their warehouse, and also for the packaging and the shipping of that product and the processing of orders. It's part of like a supply chain, the supply chain management thing. So we had somebody that I was representing, I was doing the contract management for, and they signed they were in the midst of changing warehouses because the warehouse wasn't performing very well. It had a bunch of deliveries. They didn't have a system where you could track the orders, where you know that the order was placed and that you know that it got shipped. They didn't have a way to let you know when they ship something via Federal Express or whether they ship something, UPS or regular mail. You couldn't, the people who were contracting with them, they didn't have a way to get the tracking numbers on packages that were sent. So what they had to do is every time they sent a package, they had to go to UPS and try to figure out what the tracking number was. In a really good system, warehousing system, they'll let you know what that is because they ship the product. You have to let your customer know that the product's on the way. And if you can't get your tracking number, then that becomes a big problem, right? And they had made promises around having a system, a computer system that would allow you to know that, and it would be automated. So it was just very, very manual process. And they changed warehouses because this one warehouse didn't keep the promises. But in negotiating the deal, we try to terminate the agreement, and we find out that somebody who worked for the company that I was representing or that I was working with, they had re-signed an agreement. They had extended the agreement with this company, knowing that we were trying to move all of the material out to another warehouse. So the question was, why would that person do that? And the reason that they did it was that they were not an employee. They were a contractor, right? They were a contractor, but a contractor who was allowed to have a title that made it look as if they were representing the product manufacturer. So what happened was they struck a deal. They had a contract not only with this particular manufacturer who was storing their product in their warehouse. They also had a deal with the warehouse where they were getting paid for every customer that they brought to the warehouse. So they were essentially they got paid on both ends of the deal. They got paid to negotiate the deal for one side, and they got paid by the other side to negotiate the deal. And when their one partner, who was the product manufacturer, wanted out of the deal, they went on ahead and just signed a re-up. They re-upped them because they had the ability to do it. It's called agency. And when you represent somebody or you're held out and somebody reasonably believes that you have the ability to bind them into a contractual relationship, the court is going to hold you responsible because they have agency, and it was reasonable for the other party to rely on that person's word. Anyway, so that's what double dipping is. And this is the exact type of situation that you can expect to happen when you have a lying ass promoter. And here Eddie Hearn double dips, right? Because Eddie Hearn can deal with any fighter that's represented by the promoter of Alexander Povetkin. There's no mutual. He has, anytime you have an agreement, a fight, when you're promoting a boxing match, it's a partnership. So he can agree with another promoter that, look, man, we're going to make this bout happen. And I'm going to get my fighter to agree to it. And he says, okay, well, look, I'll front you some money on it, or look, I'll give you some money in, this way or that way or whatever, as long as you show up with the fight that I want. And then Eddie Hearn turns around and tanks a negotiation for Deontay Wilder, knowing the whole time that, and everybody knew it. I knew it. Anybody that's been paying attention to what Eddie Hearn has said knew that Alexander Povetkin bout was going to happen next. So the two promoters work in concert along with the WBA, the sanctioning body, to tie in Deontay Anthony Joshua into a bout that he might not have actually wanted, to cut him out of the money that he was going to make for Deontay Wilder. So, I mean, it's just something that I've seen before, that I personally dealt with, and something that, that a promoter in a situation that Eddie Hearn is can easily pull off when you have that many moving parts. He can agree to extra fees with the WBA. He can agree to, paying Rabinski paying extra money for overpaying for bouts between fighters on that Eddie Hearn might represent, that he puts on a card in Russia, where the guy might say, all right, I'll just pay. Now, I would pay $100,000 for it, or 100,000 pounds. But what I'll do is I'll cut you a real sweet deal, and I'll pay you $250,000 on these 3 fights. Okay. But I'm only going to do it if the Anthony Joshua bout happens. So you can't even tie it correctly, connect it, the money that's paid for that directly to Anthony Joshua, and prove a breach of fiduciary duty by Eddie Hearn. At the end of the day, that's why you don't trust he has to lie. And even if Anthony Joshua could prove it or thought that he could prove it, then he would still get tied up in court, have to spend a bunch of money in court, be prevented from making extra money because he's under a 3-fight promotional deal with Eddie Hearn. It's like the saying goes, man, you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. You'll catch some fleas. You know what I mean? Start kiss enough snakes, you'll get bit. And more than I would not doubt that this actually happened. But then that brings me to the conversation about MT Global and Roy Jones Jr. I'd be real interested to know what the actual partnership is, because when they announced the partnership, they just said they were happy to announce the partnership. They didn't say what the partnership was going to actually entail. Now, if it is that they're going to manage boxers that are promoted by Roy Jones Jr., in the United States, that's a violation of the Ali Act, because as a manager, if the manager, which would be MTK Global, right, which I believe is formed by Matthew Macklin, had a formal or an informal relationship with a promoter to provide him boxers, that tears down the firewall that was put in place between a promoter and a manager. But if what his agreement is that he's going to basically recruit boxers that he doesn't promote to sign with MTK Global, right, then that could be something else, as long as he's not doing it as, in the capacity of a promoter. And it was real unclear what exactly the partnership is when they announced that agreement. But at the end of it, man, all of this stuff related to promoters and managers and all that, man, boxing all of business can be really, really dirty. I mean, people say boxing is dirty business, man. Hamburger business is a dirty business. You know what I mean? Real estate's a dirty business. Anytime you deal with people who are unethical and immoral, immoral probably doesn't fall into, but unethical and dishonest, you're always going to wind up in a situation. You can always wind up in a situation where you get taken advantage of. And the sanctioning bodies fall into that as well, because the sanctioning bodies really do work primarily for the promoter. Because a promoter that continually has, for example, Top Rank and their obvious relationship with the WBO, where they continually having their boxers being ranked by the WBO, fight in WBO sanctioned bouts where the WBO is getting the sanctioning fee, and you just know you can tell by the way that boxers are moved and who's made the mandatory and who's ranked in those organizations, that the ranking of people in that organization probably have more to do with their alignment with promoters than it does their actual ability in the ring. What the belt is, what those belts are. And it's funny, man, I used to use the analogy that these belts, like championship belts, and these are just as much nooses as they are belts. They tie the boxer into paying a bunch of fees. It limits who they can and cannot fight, when they can and cannot fight. And if they turn on their promoter or want to leave their promoter, then they're basically put at odds with that promoter's sanctioning body, right? Because the sanctioning body, you work for who pays you. You know what I mean? So even if you're a YouTube channel and you get revenue off of YouTube ads, right? You work for the people who provide that income for you. And that could be several people. It doesn't just have to be one person. It's the platform that gives you access, right? It's the people in the ads, the people that actually purchase the ads. It's the consumers and the subscribers and the unsubscribers that watch the video. All of those people are combined to create the effect that you desire. So same thing goes for boxing, you know, and it seems as if the sanctioning bodies work for the promoters, that the boxers work for the promoters. And that's the one thing that I just think was really unique about the PBC, because some people call me a PBC shill. I'm a free market guy. And the PBC is the epitome of a free market, the free market in boxing, where as long as you have the name recognition and the ability, you can fight for whatever promoter you want, on whatever platform you want, for whatever sanctioning body belt you want. You know, just as long as, you know, the end user, at the end of the day, the person whose money is the ultimate customer, which is the fight fan, as long as they enjoy what you do. Anyway, so it is what it is, man. It's a dirty game. Not much more to say about this one. And with that, and shout out again to my man Blue Blood Sports TV and Barbershop Conversations for the information that they shared. Definitely check out their videos. And with that, I'm out. Peace.